Hey, Super Peeps. Yeah, it's one of those podcasts.
I'm sorry, I just really tired. My bad. We hope you're all doing well. It's finally nicer weather here, you know.
Yes, the sun
snow
is finally
melting.
coming out. I've got a nice, beautiful glow in my room right now.
Ooh.
The good vibes. Got the good vibes.
We just hope it continues.
Yes.
I know not to be, just because of the time of the year, I just know not to be too excited.
Right? When it comes to living in Alberta, I don't know if it's like this for anybody else, but in Alberta, it's like you're not safe until after May long weekend. That seems to be the
and
the
even
cutoff
then, it's
point.
dicey.
Yeah.
It's just kind of rude, to be honest. It's very rude. But yeah, I think today we are all about Dexter again, I think.
Yes, I think we're wrapping up our Dexter extravaganza.
We are wrapping up Original Sin.
Yeah.
Cause yeah, we got some stuff to talk about.
Mm-hmm.
So let's just crawl into our little dens and get ready to fucking go.
All right, here we go.
Stretch. I'm trying to remember everything we talked about, but I mean, a lot of it was us critiquing the show heavily.
Mm-hmm.
But I think, because we've kind of chatted about it a little bit off pod, but I'm actually genuinely surprised at the last little bit of the season of how much I enjoyed it.
Right? Me too.
It's very frustrating.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
It's very frustrating. And I mean, I think you brought it up, like, you know, it's the stuff with Brian that's the most interesting.
Yeah.
And it felt like all the stuff that we were kind of complaining about, like, you know, Dexter, you know, becoming his own as a killer, and they were having these weird ass long sequences of like him getting fucking horse tranquilizer and getting stuck and all this nonsense.
Yeah.
To like slowly making them just like little notes, like little cheeky notes to the audience. And I'm like, why didn't we just do that from the beginning?
Right?
Why did we have to do anything else?
Right.
Instead of these one little off moments that are just cheeky enough so that like most Dexter fans would know what it is, instead of having like these long drawn out sequences. So that was weird.
Yeah.
I must say, when Deborah threw that bracelet into the ocean, and Dexter kind of has like the epiphany, like, oh, that's what I should do with my victims. I should throw them in the ocean. He's doing his little speech, and I'm like, Deb, you could have just fucking pawned that. And then literally 2 seconds later, she's like, damn, I should have pawned that. I was like, girl, that's what I said.
Yeah.
Like, I know Gio's a bad guy, but like, pawn his shit. Make some money.
Right?
Come on, girl. Also, speaking of Deb, I know we talked a lot the last episode about her kind of like character arc, and just more like how we were confused of how this was supposed to transition into the Deb we know from the OG show.
Yes.
And yeah, it kind of felt like the writers were like, we're just gonna speedrun this as fast as we can. Because out of nowhere was like, oh, dump Gio. Oh, actually, you know what? I know you were suspended from school and you weren't at the volleyball tournament thing, but the coach watched your tape and likes you anyway. Oh, your best friend was mad at you? Just kidding. Now you're friends again.
Yep.
And she's like, you know what? I'm going to go to school to be a cop.
And that whole thing about doing cocaine? No repercussions. There's nothing.
Honestly,
what?
bless. Like, that was all very weird. I was like, you have suffered no consequences.
Yeah.
This is weird.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I mean, I still like some of the moments early on in the show showing her loneliness and her trying to deal with the grief and the loss of her mom.
Yes, I thought
those scenes were really good.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I just felt like they did a random speed run for her character to be like, oh shit, yeah, this is how she becomes a detective. Woo! And you're like,
woo!
what?
Right? I feel like the series was a little, like, maybe 1 or 2 episodes too long because of that. They were, like you said, like, they could have maybe cut some of that out. We didn't need to see all that other little, like, crap with Deb. I think yeah, like the
Yeah.
stuff with her experiencing the loneliness, grieving the loss of the mom, trying to like, keep things together with Dexter and Harry by like, oh, it's
Mm-hmm.
our mom's one whatever year anniversary, let's do
Yeah.
something, and then nobody shows up, and then she's like sitting in the kitchen crying. Like that all was perfect. Like that
Mm-hmm.
was good. And then her coming to the police station and kind of like seeing all the stuff there and then being intrigued to want to like become a cop. All of that would have been perfect, but all that stuff in the middle was just a little like it took you out of it.
Maybe they're just adding some fluff, They're like,
Yeah.
hey, we just need some extra stuff. Fluff, fluff, fluff.
Yeah.
They're like, Harry, it's 90% flashbacks for him, so he's covered. He's covered.
He's covered, yeah.
you know? And I mean, speaking of Harry. I mean, so I understand, like, the Dexter OG show is based on the first book of the Dexter series, Darkly Dreaming Dexter.
Yes.
You see that all the time as the seasons go on. Like, I think season 1 is basically the book. Like, they're very similar. There's, like, a couple, like, nitpicky things that are not the same, but a lot of it helps expand and make the world better. So, like, I think that's really good.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes I feel like they were like, we would like to rewrite some stuff. And then they're like, just kidding. We're going to just speedrun. And I'm
Right.
like, what? Because, like, I am still in disbelief that Brian would listen to Harry. Sorry. So, I'm getting way ahead of myself. So, audience, sorry. So, as we were kind of theorizing, I can't remember if we've confirmed it last time, but Brian ends up being the guy who's killing all these people that LaGuerta and Harry are their little sub case that they're trying to solve.
Yes. We had speculation last. We had talked about it on the podcast. There had been little nods and Easter eggs and hints towards it, and it is confirmed that Brian is a part of the show. This is all in his leading up to what happens.
And I mean, it was even better. We were like, hey, that guy looks like Brian in like episode 2, so all this like payoff, it's so beautiful. But we get, I can't remember, I think it was episode 8 maybe, where it was very Brian focused. You kind of see like what happens to him.
Yes.
From that point. Which we're gonna do a little pin on that because I have another thought on that.
Okay.
And then you basically see him kill his therapist, and he starts killing all the people who, in his mind, wronged him. I mean, some of them it was kind of brutal, and others where it's like, I don't know, buddy. Like, I'm sorry that happened to you, but, yeah,
Yeah.
I don't feel that poor lady should have died. She was just trying to do the best of her job as a child worker, but, she can only do so much with the limited resources, sometimes people get.
But I think it's kind of interesting, too, to see the contrast between how both Brian and Dexter experienced the exact same trauma, and one going to a loving family and being able to somehow, in some way, channel those traumas into, what Dexter was able to channel it into, versus Brian not having that same support. And...
Yeah.
It got channeled into a whole different way. I thought that was really interesting to show.
But then it comes so after he kills, I think it's the child care lady on the roof with the chainsaw.
Yeah. That was brutal.
Yeah, right. Harry, I think, notices a little bit before that and sees that Brian has been stalking, like, Dexter at all the crime scenes. And so when it happens, he's looking around, he finds him. And then they have a bit of a confrontation. And then Harry says something along lines of, like, you will leave him alone because even though you hate me, deep down, I'm the best thing for him. And then Brian knocks him out and then leaves in blood, like, you're right, on the door.
Yeah.
And I can't believe it. Like, this guy at this point has killed, like, 6 people. And he's just like, well, Harry said so I guess so. especially when you like see like throughout the show and the flashbacks like how much hate he has towards Harry. Justifiable, mind you, justifiable. So for him to just listen to him, I think is a little weird.
Yeah, they need to, again, it sounds like there might be a possible season 2 at this point now. Well, it's not confirmed. I'm just saying based off of, we'll see. Like, just the amount of questions that we have, that there's, like, a few things that they haven't really, like, tied up in this. I would not be surprised if there's going to be a season 2 to this. And if there isn't, then I would be able to confidently say that that's just kind of lazy writing. You know, it's like, oh, how can we explain why he doesn't bother to like do anything or reach out to Dexter for all these years up until like the events of season 1 happen, right?
And again, another thing, timeline then. I want to know like how many years is that? Like, because I think you brought up this cool theory of like maybe Brian actually kills Harry.
Yeah.
And, like, stages it. Although, no offense to Brian, I don't think he has the finesse in him. He's like, I'm all raw emotions and I'm going to attack with raw emotions. Well,
again, that'll be interesting because all of season 1, like, Dexter looks up to him, right? He admires him. He's like, oh my god, this guy's like my, what did he call him? I can't remember what he called him, but like, because when he's leaving all the little clues for him everywhere, like Dexter just gets so like, oh my god, like this guy's like playing with me kind of thing, right? Ooh, this is exciting. Like, can I learn something from this guy? He just looks up to him and holds him so highly, right?
Yeah.
So
until he tries to kill his sister, then he's like, nah,
yeah, but it's
good.
like clearly he obviously, you know, honed in his skills. Brian, I mean, he honed in his skills enough to be able to like get that much admiration from Dexter. So yeah, like that kind of gap in the timeline would be interesting to either explain or show, or at least tie them in somehow so that it makes sense where those years, you know.
And again, I think lately I've just been hallucinating stuff that's just not real. Side note, me and my friend were watching X-Men Origins, and we both hallucinated a scene that doesn't exist. We tried to like look it up, and we're like, what crack are we on?
Oh no, it's the Mandela effect.
We were both convinced that this scene existed, and it just doesn't.
Oh
it's
my God.
Nowhere.
It probably does. They just they got rid of it in all.
They scrubbed it.
Yeah,
Trying to make us
completely.
feel like crazy people.
Yeah.
But my point is, I think I could be crazy again, but for some reason I feel like at the start of season 1, like Dexter seems to indicate that Harry's been dead for like 5 years or something. But again, I think I'm just losing it. I think I'm just losing it, to be fair. So yeah, but yeah, again, I would just be curious of the timelines, because like, yeah, maybe Harry being like, hey, stay away from my son, you know, does, I guess, push Brian away a little bit, and then the second he dies, then like I could see him pouncing right away. You know what I mean? But I just can't remember at all.
Yeah, and I don't think I paid enough or that close enough of attention to that little bit of detail if they mentioned it or not. It's just that Harry has been gone, and you know, season 1 is pretty heavily littered with flashbacks of Harry, because obviously to set up all of the stuff. But yeah, I don't remember. If anybody knows, leave us a comment.
Yeah. Again, maybe I'm just making it up, which is, I don't know, sounds about right for me these days. But yeah, I'd be very curious on the timeline of that.
Yeah.
And sorry, now that I have it now stuck in the noggin, let's go back to Brian. Like, we're going through life now through Brian's eyes, and we see all that in like episode 8. Like, all of that was really good, but then it irks me. I'm like, why did we start the beginning of this series where New Blood like dropped off?
Yes.
So I think we even said, we're like, oh, this must be Dexter's life flashing before his eyes. But if we're seeing stuff with like Brian, and even to extent Harry and Deb, like, that's not Dexter's experience.
Yes.
So, and it kind of felt like the show forgot about that, and they were like, we don't care anymore.
Well, not that I want to take their side, and I don't even know if this is true either too, but like I just from my own observation, because we obviously love the beautiful square zoom out transitions that
I love them so much too. I love it so much.
So logically, if that's one of the first transitions they use to show Dexter kind of having this like life flashing before my eyes moment, the last time we saw that transition was, I think, before episode 9, and it was like zooming out on Deb crying and stuff like that.
Kendra texted me and she was like, just FYI, it's gonna happen again. And I was like, no! No!
Prepare yourself!
No!
But part of me wants to ask if that was like that whole bit was like, okay, this was all of the experience of Dexter's life flashing before his eyes, and after that last transition, because it was so random. Like, why would they put it right there at the end of that episode and not for the end of the series, right? Mm-hmm. So I'm wondering if that was their way of saying this was Dexter experiencing his life flash before his eyes, and now these last 2 episodes, it's just we're fly on the wall watching everything else unfold so that you can see how it blends into the season 1.
I mean, sure. My argument would be, just don't bother.
Yeah.
That's my, like, why?
Right?
Why? And again, why? I feel like if they just didn't do it, I just feel like that would, I mean, it wouldn't solve all the problems we have with the show, but I feel like it would have gone off on a better foot, for sure. Mm-hmm. And, yeah, just no more square transitions. They're terrible. Don't do them. They're awful. Awful, awful, awful. Mm-hmm. What was my thought?
I wonder, too, like, if camera placement choices would have been a better, like, if they had made better choices in that way, like, being that this was supposed to be, or I'm assuming the intention was supposed to be, you know, Dexter's life flashing before his eyes, if we had gotten more, like, over-the-shoulder POV shots from Dexter's point of view, it would have made more sense, I feel like, with that whole experience, whereas I think that's maybe where it's also kind of confusing in some ways, is because we weren't really getting those images of seeing things from Dexter's point of view. We were seeing Dexter within this scene, but it wasn't ever really, like, showing his reaction or how he was observing it and stuff like that. It was just kind of like a typical show style setup, right?
Many questions. Many questions
right?
Indeed. But I will say that shot at the very end with, again, I want to give kudos to Patrick Dempsey. What a treat. If like anything, I very much enjoyed his character this season. I was also very upset because he does a whole stunt at a crack house and Bobby almost dies. And I legitly was going to be like, if Bobby dies, the show gets an automatic 0 out of 10. I do not care. 0 out of 10. There's a shot where Dexter finally gets to kill him and there's like a reflection of like the knife of like Dexter's eyes over Patrick Dempsey's body. Like, ooh.
That was cool.
Woo! That was beautiful.
Right?
But yeah, and then you had brought up a really good point of like when Harry has like a talk with Dexter. Again, this is like time. This is where I need a timeline of like what the fuck's going on.
Right?
Because there's this weird thing where he's like, oh, the captain couldn't be the one, after Dexter kind of like had one of his moments of like, oh my God, it's him. Mm-hmm. He's the one who abducted the judge's kid and he abducted his own kid. He's fucking nuts. Mm-hmm. And he tries to explain that to Harry and Harry's like, you're dumb. You're just dumb. Dexter's like, okay. So then, you know, it comes out that it was him. And then Harry has a pretty calm conversation with Dexter, just being like, wow, son, I'm really proud. And you took care of it. Wow. I mean, he was more impressed, I think, that he chose to save Nikki over
just killing him,
going after him. Yeah. I mean, he got both. Dexter got his cake and he ate it too, you know, so there's no worries on that. But he says something like, I'm super proud of you, son. Like, good job on killing people. It's your code now. And I think it was you who brought it up. You're just like, what? That's such a contrast to what happens from like season 1. Yeah. We see that flashback. So what gives?
Right?
What gives, Home Slice?
Yeah, to me that just it seemed out of character for Harry. So again, like maybe, like you said, maybe they just decided we're gonna rewrite a few things. Mm-hmm. But yeah, like there is a, if anyone recalls, there is a flashback scene in, I'm pretty sure it's season 1, where it's Deb's birthday and Captain Matthews comes over to the house to talk to Harry about a case where one of the guys that they were trying to get put away ends up walking, and Harry gets really upset about it, and Dexter overhears this and goes, well, I'm gonna do something about it to show Harry, you know, just to make him proud and show him, you know, what I can do, kind of thing, right? And so Dexter ends up killing this guy, and Harry walks in on him doing it, and Harry's disgusted by it. Like, he's just absolutely appalled, and he ends up saying, I never should have taught you that code, and then, like, ends up storming off. And so it's kind of like, yeah, it just seems like a real contrast from this whole scene where Harry in Original Sin is like, I'm so proud of you, it's your code now, you got this, oh yeah, like, he just, it's, yeah, it just doesn't, I don't know, the seriousness, he doesn't take it quite as seriously as original Harry does in original Dexter. Like, every time he had a conversation with Dexter, it was intense, it was serious. He was like, look, you need to take this seriously. This isn't a game. This isn't just for kicks. You are actually taking a life, and I need you to understand that, and, you know, blah, 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 blah. Whereas Harry in Original Sin is just kind of like, attaboy, gold star, Dexter, like.
It's more like, bitch, are you gonna get caught?
Yeah.
Listen, you can do it, but if you get caught,
I ain't there to help you.
I ain't doing shit.
Yeah.
I'm throwing you under the bus. I'm saying you held me hostage. Yeah, that was weird. And I mean, again, I was trying to, like, justify it. Not really justify, but, like, make sense of it, being like, well, this is supposed to be from Dexter's experience, technically. Like, maybe Dexter's not a reliable narrator. Maybe that's something he wished Harry said, you know, to him, maybe. But again, if we're going to refer to the fucking square of doom that, like, zooms out, and we're no longer in his perspective, and we're supposed to be, like, the observers, then what we're supposed to take should be base facts, you know? So it's just very interesting, that's for sure.
Yeah. That's more where a lot of the questions are now. It's like, we need this explanation. Plus, I just also want to know what happens to Tanya, because if this is the end of Original Sin, and they just want us to say, okay, now you start season 1 of Original Dexter, it's like, okay, well, what happens to Tanya?
Tanya lost all her money horse betting. She said that she could not, like, she couldn't handle it, and she lost all her money. And, like, you also brought up, like, Dokes has not made his appearance yet, so.
And he's sitting at Harry's desk. So that's the other thing that I'm intrigued by. Like, again, if they're going to do a season 2 of Original Sin, I'd love to see if there's if Brian has anything to do with Harry's death. And if that's the case, then that would explain why Dokes comes in, because he ends up taking Harry's desk at work. And then also, you know, at what point, unless they just still keep it like a non-on-screen piece of information of LaGuerta and Dokes having been partners in the past.
Yeah.
So that'd be interesting to know about too, right?
Well, there's also, because again, you've been watching the show, like Harry goes pick up LaGuerta, and is she dating that one guy from season 3 or 4?
Miguel, yeah.
Yeah, that was him. That was a random hint to Miguel. Okay.
Yeah.
So yeah, there's still lots of, and like, I don't know. I think I even said earlier on, like, part of me wants there to be a season 2 to kind of clear up some of this, but also part of me is like, I don't know if I want it.
Right? I
don't know if anything, I just want one of the writers or the producers to go on Twitter or something and just give me a timeline. I just need a time. That's all I want.
Just a timeline.
I just want a timeline of events, people, okay? That is all I want.
Yeah.
To, like, make sense of everything. But, I mean, it's tough. It's really tough. Because, yeah, I really enjoyed the last 2.5 episodes. That they were really well done.
Yes.
But the beginning hurts my soul. And it's definitely not pretty. That's for sure. She isn't pretty. But she does have her moments,
Yes.
but
it still stays as a high school attempt production of Dexter in my mind. It's very experimental in a lot of ways. And again, until they either come out with some sort of statement justifying why they did it the way they did, or if it gets explained in a season 2 or maybe in Resurrection, that's it just feels like it's kind of like this, let's do this fun experimental alternate universe kind of Dexter thing just for the fun of it.
No. No. And I mean, if they want to do that, why don't they just do the books?
Yeah.
Just do the books then.
Yeah.
Just do the books. You don't need to come up with a random universe. Like, the books have it all. Like, use the books, people. But yeah, I can't remember. I think, yeah, we mentioned in Resurrection that Uma Thurman was casted, and now Peter Dinklage has joined the cast. What is happening?
Yeah.
Again, no shade to Peter Dinklage. Jesus Christ. Loved him in Game of Boners. Again, what is this series supposed to be? I sent Kendra these pictures, and they're like, it's Uma Thurman on set on Dexter Resurrection. And Kendra's like, nah, it's just her hanging out with some trash. I don't know what you're talking about.
She's just in a neighborhood on a phone, walking around, going about her day.
Right? We don't know if she's on a film set.
Nope.
Like, there's no clues to tell us otherwise.
Right? Like, I'm so, I don't know. It's morbid curiosity at this point, because it's like, in my mind, again, maybe I'm being too much of a nerd by saying this, but it's like, I feel like casting some really big A-list actors for this series is just gonna, like, dilute the whole focus being on Dexter. Unless Dexter's killing these guys, I don't know. Which he could very well be, and it's just kind of like a fun, hey, we're gonna throw these guys in here and they're gonna be Dexter's new victims kind of thing, right?
I mean, I guess, but I think you said that. Oh, you go.
I was just gonna say there's no sense in making it kind of like this cinematic level quality by casting all these A-list actors. It's like you're just taking the spotlight away from Michael C. Hall, because this is all about the character of Dexter and how he goes about doing everything. So to add all these other famous people in there just seems distracting in my mind.
Yeah, I think you've said it best before, where it's like, when a project starts hiring like a lot of like A-list celebrities, it's, you get a little suspicious, because you're like, how is the quality going to be?
Right.
And to be fair, that's not on the actors themselves.
No.
It's usually like a studio head being like, you need to sell this, or this is how you're going to sell your project.
Right.
Some, and even higher up, like studio interference or something. I mean, there was that very interesting Instagram reel I found. Like, part of me doesn't want to think it's true, but it kind of makes sense.
Is that the Maya Hawke one?
Yeah, where they were talking about how many followers.
Yeah.
Which, on one hand, I'm like, I don't want to believe, but I think that's, to a degree, always been a practice, I think, in Hollywood. It just had nothing to do with social media. It was just, if you were a popular celebrity at the time, they're like, hire this celebrity to be in your movie.
Yeah.
Or if you want your movie to have legs, you have to hire a certain, level of celebrity status, which I think is very sad.
Yes, because we're no longer basing it off of a person's acting talent. It's now how much influence do they have that we can profit off of that.
How do we sell this movie?
Yeah.
How do we sell? Which demographics can we get a hold of? So, if that is the only reason Uma Thurman and Peter Dinklage have been hired onto the project, I think that's really shitty. Because I think they're both wonderful people. So, like,
oh yeah,
hire them if you're like, yes, you are the
right person, yes,
to bring this character to life. Awesome sauce. But if not, then again, why are you wasting our time?
Right?
Why are you wasting the fans' time?
Exactly.
Again, going back to Original Sin, I think it's just maybe I'm just cynical. I'm just like, it's a little bit too late to have a origin show about him at this point in my mind.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I could have just waited for Resurrection to come out in the summer.
Oh yeah, yeah.
You could have just put your energy into Resurrection, and that could have come out earlier.
Yeah,
if that was supposed to be a continuation of New Blood.
Right?
Like, no worries.
I would have spent the entire time, as I am doing now, watching all of original Dexter. Would have been perfectly fine.
Right? But no.
No, instead now I'm like the Charlie Day meme with all the red strings on the wall, and he's like, it makes no sense!
But I mean, apparently we don't have long to wait. It's coming out this summer.
Mm-hmm.
Yay. Again, I think you made a good point. It's just morbid curiosity at this point.
Yeah.
It's like,
Right?
What is this about?
Mm-hmm.
And like, I don't know, part of me secretly hopes that this does so poorly that they're like, guys, we have to scrap the Trinity Killer spinoff.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
I mean, I really don't want it in the first place, but...
Again, enough was said in the season that Trinity comes in that I'm like, okay, I know enough to understand the character and his motives. I don't need to witness it myself. You know?
Yeah.
Like, I don't understand why everyone feels the need to have to do that. There really is no need. It's just, this is an excuse to make more content for the franchise, essentially. And it's just, it's enough. We don't need it.
Well, not that it's the same, but it was very recently announced that Buffy the Vampire Slayer is getting a season again, I guess, or reboot or something.
Oh, no.
And I mean... I think that's just gonna be the way it is for quite a long time. I'm gonna be curious of, like, you know, like, yeah, all these shows did really good, you know, and, you know, sometimes, yeah, like, sometimes we need to give shows, you know, sometimes it's fun to revisit the shows, you know.
Mm-hmm. Sometimes
we should give, you know, DC Legends another season because you ripped them off. But, like, you know, apparently that will just never happen because...
Yeah.
Like, why? I'll just be miserable, I guess. That's fine.
Or Julie and the Phantoms, please. Jesus.
So I'm curious of, like, right? Because right now we're, like, coming up with these prequels and, like, these sequels and spinoffs. So what happens when now you haven't made any, like, original IP? What's going to happen now 10 years down the line? Are you just going to reboot the same shit again?
Yeah.
Because none of you were, like, willing or focused to, like, make new IP and make some new stuff?
Mm-hmm.
Like,
right?
You know?
Yeah.
Again, sometimes it's nice to revisit, but...
I get it. We all love nostalgia. It's a hard thing to, you know, to escape from sometimes. But sometimes it's healthy to have, like, fresh and new art and stories and IPs, you know, like, this is how we are able to get more growth and stories and just imagination and inspiration out there. If we just keep recycling and regurgitating the same stuff, are we actually learning from any of it? You know? Nah.
But yeah, I would give Original Sin a 4 blood slides out of 10.
four blood slides out of 10? Okay.
And maybe that's not being generous enough, or maybe a little too low, but yeah.
I think that's fair. Yeah. I would say that's fair. Yep. I would have to agree.
But I think that's everything. Original Sin, I think. Maybe? I don't know.
And I think so. Yeah, I think so. I mean,
we just hope for the best.
Right? Overall, I'll say it wasn't as bad as I initially thought it was going to be, but that being said, I still have my nitpicks of it. And
Mm-hmm.
clearly the timeline is one of the biggest things. I feel like maybe they probably
Timeline.
could have chopped it in half and just shortened it a little bit more, and maybe I would have given it more of a higher score, I guess.
Mm.
But yeah, I mean they did their best. It was fun in some ways, and it was cool to see some of the old characters be reprised for certain storylines, and the little Easter eggs were cool. And I'll admit,
Mm-hmm.
like, seeing kind of the fan theories and the comments on posts online was really fun, because it kind of reminded me of like back in the day when everybody used to do that with all the big shows, where we just kind of like interact and theorize with what was going to happen. So
Mm-hmm.
I appreciated that. But yeah.
Yeah, I agree with everything you said. Again, I know we've already said this. Like, I mean, as much as I will nitpick Resurrection right now, I do hope it's good.
Yeah.
I do hope, like, I critique it because I want it to be good. I
Yeah,
want
we
it
we
to be
care about
good.
it.
I don't want to give the impression that I'm always miserable when I hear like, oh, this new thing, that new
Yeah,
thing.
yeah.
Ah.
But I
I
feel like
just,
everybody feels that way nowadays to an extent,
yeah.
especially when it's with an IP that like they really really care about. And Dexter's one that it's a
Hmm.
favorite of ours, so of course we're gonna have some pretty heavy critiques on it.
Yeah. Just always want the best, I guess.
Yep.
Um, but yeah, thank you so much, Cinema Peeps, for tuning in for another wonderful episode. Leave us your comments down below about the show. Like I
Mm-hmm.
said, did I hallucinate that the series starts 5 years after Harry's death? Please let me know, because I'm genuinely lost. I don't know anymore. Also consider leaving this video a little likesy, and considering subscribing to Two Pretty Cool Gals, in my opinion. But anyways, guys, watch all the content, and we'll see you next time. Bye-bye!
Bye-bye.
Monkey.
Monkey.